So on this slide, I would like to briefly look at the challenges to really cover broadband in the medium and long term. And there we have to deal with several issues. I already showed you this chart before, and the objective which we now have and the challenge we now have is how to reduce areas where profitability is highly risky or where state subsidies are needed. And these are these areas 2 or 3. And what I tried to show on this slide is we have to find ways how to move these borders of these competitive areas or of these no man's land areas further to the right to really get the investment in place. And on the right side, you see that there are, from my point of view, 3 very important issues we have to tackle to really move these borders from the left to the right side. The first one is cost reduction measures. We've already talked this morning that 80% of the investment is, let's say, going into the ground. It's civil works. And so it's not only that we get access, let's say, to telecommunication civil works and ducts, but I think in this respect, some advantages, for example, Portugal has shown that access to cable ducts and also utility ducts is one possibility to really significantly reduce cost. Another issue is in-house cabling. And in-house cabling depends on the owner, depends also on the operator, how to deploy it. And these costs are also, as you can imagine, going to each and every customer is a very big chunk of the cost. And so also there we have some ideas in some countries, for example in Switzerland, where new buildings have to be already set by the house owner so that in-house cabling is already there. So there are a lot of ideas to really reduce cost in this respect. And next point, geographical differentiation. Of course, it's quite clear to understand if we have 3 areas which we differentiate and we try to move the borders, we have to think in how far an adequate geographical segmentation is necessary and how to define it and how to really see where we have competition. And I think there we have a lot of examples already amongst regulators in the UK, for example, and other countries where we have geographical differentiation and where we are only regulating those parts where the regulator still comes to the conclusion that there's market dominance. And I think with cable operators there, with FTTH operators and with DSL operators in competition there, we have, and also mobile for the time being, we have to take into account that the characteristics of competition have changed and we need a more adequate geographical differentiation in this respect. And last but not least, specific regulatory approaches, and this is what we already tackled this morning and what we've already heard. These are risk-sharing models and, of course, symmetric access. Let me now come to a brief look to the Hungarian situation. I don't want to, as you are all aware with these issues, bore you and tell you something which you already know, but I think what we perceive here in Hungary is that we see a lot of aggressive infrastructure competition. We have a strong mobile broadband uptake. I think this is something Hungary could always be very proud of, that people were very mobile affine, let's say, and like to use their mobiles very much. And of course, this really leads us then into this digital society. And what we have to also consider is that cable has become the leader in fixed broadband. And TV is also one of the main drivers. So what are the challenges then? As I already said, we have a rapid traffic growth in mobile. We all see this every day. Everyone who uses a smartphone knows that we are using it even more. And so the frequencies are really needed to get these capacities on our networks. And of course, I already addressed it, it's part of the radio spectrum policy program, but for example in Hungary, we know that the 900 megahertz frequencies, EGSM band, is necessary for the mobile operators. And of course, and that's what the German example also shows, it's not only the EGSM band, it's also the 2.6 spectrum, due to the fact that we don't only have network build-out and capacity needs in remote and rural areas with a big propagation, but also in dense areas like towns like Budapest and so on. So we desperately need this spectrum to really provide our customers with those services they really need. Well, of course, the administration also has some tasks, taking into account long process of building permissions and how to resolve the rollout in rural areas. In fixed, despite the very diverse competitive environment which the left-hand side shows and the falling prices which we see, I think there's more need for a differentiated and approach in light of what we see with regard to competition. And Hungary is in this respect really set up for deregulation and letting market forces work. And it's, from my point of view, following this whole discussion over years now, and I'm overseeing not only the Hungarian market, but also our other Central and Eastern European and Southern Eastern European market, the development which we've seen on a competitive level in Hungary is quite outstanding. And that's why, in this respect, also with regards to the markets which are currently assessed 4 and 5, it's really time to really free Magyar Telekom of the SMP status here. Okay, I have 2 minutes left, and this already leads me really to my last slide and the recommendations I wanted to briefly discuss with you. First of all, spectrum management. I think I already said something in this respect. Oh, yep, sorry for that. The utilization of free frequencies. I think here the major goal of the Hungarian presidency, as Mr. Nitrai also said this morning, is to really get Europe to the point that the digital dividend is there at the beginning of 2013. Because this German positive example, which we've seen, is only possible if all European countries go into the same direction, because otherwise we will have a lot of border disputes, which takes too much time, and in this respect, we really have to go for it. And we have to discuss what additional kind of spectrum is needed, and there also the Hungarian presidency is looking at what the World Radio Conference has to do in 2012 and 16, and I think there they have put the right things in front. NGNA regulation, I already said some issues with regard to cost reduction. We have to define regionalized approaches. We have to have symmetric regulatory approaches, especially for NGA rollout, and we have to drive the risk sharing to its full potential. With regard to the overall economic framework, I think everybody is aware that broadband is the issue for our investment. But as also said this morning, we have to set the right framework and the right terms in this respect. And for example, additional taxes on telecoms will have an adverse effect. And there are a lot of papers outside from International Chamber of Commerce, for example, who directly exactly discuss this. And I think in this respect, we really have to see whether we risk something for short term, but don't achieve it in the long term. Last but not least, market stimulation. I think, and that's what we already heard this morning, it's not only literacy, it's also that we have these broadband networks for something which we as operators want to deliver to our customers. And there are a lot of chances out there as soon as we have the right stimulus, the right networks. I'm not going into the details. It's e-health, it's automotive, it's energy networks, it's teleworking, it's corporate social responsibility issues, and so on and so on. And I think we have a lot to do, and with the right framework, I think we will achieve that. Thanks very much.